Hello and welcome back to this channel. If you're new here, my name is Palmy and this YouTube channel is designed to help you master DAZSTUDIO and help you to create the best 3D renders. In today's video, we are going to continue with the PLP framework, and in part 5, we're going to be focusing on Postwork. Now, I've already done a video sharing my process, very brief process of my Postwork process. The link in the video is on the top right card here. So check that out as well to give you some more context regarding Postwork. However, in this video, we're going to focus on a different technique that I wish I knew about earlier. And once I started to use this technique, I was shocked with the amount of control you have with the lighting. There's so much control you have in Postwork that I don't need to go back into DAZSTUDIO and mess around with the lighting settings or anything. I could do that all inside my favorite photo editing software. And that's the power of this technique I want to share with you today regarding Postwork. Here we are inside DAZSTUDIO, right where we left off with part 4 of the PLP framework. However, before we hit the render button, we need to change some of the settings. And in order to do that, we need to go to Render Settings tab here and Progressive Render Settings here. As you can see from this, these are all the defaults there. I do not want the defaults. I want to control how DAZSTUDIO renders this scene. Now, I've already gone through these settings in a video before, so I highly recommend you check that out. The link will be in the top right card here, so definitely check that out if you want to go more deeper and understand how each setting affects your renders and how it increases or decreases your render time. So I highly recommend you check that out. However, in this video, I'm going to share with you the render settings that I currently use that I feel give me the best results for my graphic novels, for any artwork that I'm creating. These are the settings that I use. If you want to use those settings, cool, go ahead, absolutely fine. And then experiment, discover what works for you in terms of the scenes that you're creating. That's a great way to start. So for the max samples here, 15,000 here, that's what I like to do there. Rendering quality, I do 5. And then for the rendering conversion ratio, I do 99%. Now, doing these settings is going to dramatically increase my rendering times, even on my little itty bitty 8GB NVIDIA 1070 Ti graphics card. It's probably going to take right about 30 minutes to 40 minutes to render this scene. That's absolutely fine. It might even take 20 minutes. I don't know, but it's going to be a lot longer than I want it to be. However, that's what I want, right? I want the best scenes, the best artwork for my graphic novel readers, or whoever's looking at my artwork. I want the best for them, so I'm going to use these settings. So these are settings that I use for the progressive render settings here. There's another setting I need to do, and that is I need to go to render settings again, and I need to go to filtering here. These are the default filter settings, and what we're going to be looking at focusing on in this one is pixel filter radius, and post denoiser. Now, regarding these 3 options here, I've done a video going into a lot of detail, so highly recommend you check that out. Link in the top right card here. Because with these default settings, your renders will be washed out. What does that mean? It means you'll lose the details. So imagine you've just bought the latest Genesis character with fantastic skin, and you bought some hair and everything else, and you do a render with these settings, you're going to lose all those details. That is a waste. That is a waste of you investing in that character. So this is why pixel filter is very important, and I highly recommend you watch that video. However, in this video, I'm going to share with you the settings that I use that seem to give me the best overall details for my renders, regardless of whether I'm doing a close-up shot, a medium shot like this, or a long shot. Doesn't matter, in my graphic novels, I still get those lovely, beautiful, crisp renders with these settings. So my pixel filter, I normally choose Mitchell here. My pixel filter radius, I choose 1%. Post denoiser, I turn that on. Post denoiser enabled, turn that on as well. And my post denoiser started iteration is 1000. So that's the setting I use. They work very well for me. Again, experiment, discover, see what works for you. These settings may not work right for you. Maybe if you're creating portraits all the time, these ones may not give you the results you're looking for. You have to experiment, you have to discover. If you want to use this as a starting point, yes, please go ahead, because they're going to give you something to start on. And then you can see the difference as you change some of these settings. So I highly recommend, like I said before, go watch my other video. We go into these settings a lot, and you'll see the difference in your renders. Now, for this brand new Postwork technique that I'm going to share with you, what we need to do inside DAZSTUDIO is we need to isolate each lighting portion of your scene. So what does that mean? It means inside my scene right now, I have 3 lights. I have this light here, which is Spotlight 2. Yeah. I have this light here, which is the blue light here, Spotlight 1. And then I have my emissive lights. So what I need to do is there will be 3 renders. I'm going to isolate this and create 3 renders. The first render will just be of this, of my emissive. So I'll do a render of this emissive. That's my first render. And then my second render, I'm going to remove the emissive because I don't want that emissive anymore. So I'm going to go into my surfaces here for the ivy here, the branches here. And I'm going to choose black because I don't want that anymore. And then I'm going to do a second render of just this blue light. And then I'm going to turn that off. And then I'm going to do my third render of this green light here. So I should have 3 renders. This is what you need to do for this technique. Now, if you've got more than 3 lights, if you've got 4 lights, 5 lights, then you're going to have that many renders. You're going to have 5 renders or 6 renders or 7 renders. And it feels like it's a lot of work, like why am I rendering this out? But you will see the power of this technique. When I go into Photoshop, you will see the power of this technique and then you'll realize like, okay, it's worth investing that extra time creating those layers for each light source you have in your scenes. That's the first thing you need to do for this technique is go through, see how many lights you have in your scene, and then for each one you want to individually turn one light on, hit the render, turn that one off, do the next light, all by itself. So every layer should be a different part of your scene. So that's what you need to do first before we do anything else. So here we are inside Photoshop here, my favorite photo editing software. And I've put my 3 layers in there. I've got my blue light, my red light, and my green light here. And then I got my just a plain layer here that I put here like a background black here. So I've put them into a folder called after because I want to show you the before and after. That's the best way to show you the transformation, is to show you the render that DAZSTUDIO would normally spit out with just doing one render by itself. And then here we've got the after where we've got the 3 individual lights which we can control immensely and then show you the difference. And that's the best way to show you this technique, the before and after, to show you the power of using this technique regarding Postwork. So when you put your layers inside here, there's a specific way you put your layers of your renders inside your favorite photo editing software. So whatever is the furthest layer, the furthest light, that needs to be the bottom layer. So in this case, my furthest light is the green here. It's the green. So that's why it's at the bottom here. Then here, the next one is red. So that'll be red. And then the next one here is blue, right? That's the nearest to me. So that's the way you need to work in terms of ordering your layers. Now with these two, the symbol here regarding the green light and the blue light is they are smart layers, which means they're non-destructive, which means I can go back and forth and I can have full control whether I want to go back to the original or anything like that. So they're non-destructive, meaning that I can always go back to a previous version of that. So I haven't done it for the red light here, so I need to right click here on my layer here and to convert to smart object. Now it's a smart object. Cool. So at the moment we can't see the red light or the green light, we can only see the blue light, which is the top. And in order for us to see that, we need to go to each layer and turn the blending mode to screen. So I'm going to turn it to screen for blue light. I'm turning it for screen for the red light, and the green light I'm also going to turn it to screen as well. Cool. Now we can see everything as it was. So we can see everything here in terms of all the lighting. That's awesome. Now, if you think about what I said earlier on, all the way back in part 2, is I wanted this green fountain here to be the focal point. So this should be brighter than anything else. So that's my whole intention, is to look at this scene and say, okay, let me look at this render that just came out of DAZSTUDIO. How can I make this green light here more brighter? What can I do? Because I've got control over the individual lights. That's my main focus. So I need to have a focal point, something to work towards. Otherwise, I'm working haphazardly. I don't want to do that. I want to have my focal point here and I want to make sure everything works around this. So what we can do is I can click on the blue layer here and I can use the opacity to reduce it. So I can reduce it and look what happens. Look how much control I have with that. Absolutely amazing. Like it's real time editing here where I don't need to go back into DAZSTUDIO and go back and turn down that blue light and hit the render button again. No, I can do it all inside here in Photoshop or in your favorite photo editing software. You've got so much control now. It's absolutely amazing. When I learned about this, I was like, oh, I wish I knew about this earlier. It would have saved me so much time. Instead of just going back into DAZSTUDIO, change that light again, I could just do it inside Photoshop, which is absolutely amazing. So I'm going to reduce this blue light a bit here so we can make that a bit darker, maybe something like 74% for now. Now, I don't like the red light here. The red is far too bright here, which is overpowering the scene. So again, the red light layer, I'm going to reduce the opacity for that as well here as well. So that'll do for now. It's absolutely fine. For the green light here, I feel like this needs to be more powerful. So what I can do is I can duplicate it. So I can right click on this layer, duplicate the layer. You'll notice that the green here, if you have a look at the green here, when I duplicate it, it's going to enhance significantly. So if I do OK, see how that shot up the power now? Now, obviously that is far too bright. I didn't want it that bright. Again, I can go to that second copy here in the layers panel here, and I can reduce that here as well. So maybe something like 70-something percent. 77% looks okay. Now that's a lot brighter. Now your eye is going to go towards it. My viewer's eye is going to go towards it because that is more brighter than anything else. As I'm looking at this render right now, I'm noticing that this red here is not in line with the triadic color theory. So although we've got blue here and we've got green here, that red should be more like a magenta color now that I think about it. So I don't need to go back into DAZSTUDIO to change this. I can do this inside Photoshop. All I need to do now is go to where my red light is in my layers panel, click on that. I'm going to use my adjustment layer, my hue saturation adjustment layer here. And I want to clip it to this layer here. So I'm going to click on this here, which means that whatever I do, it's only going to affect this layer below it. Nothing else. It's not going to affect all this green. It's only going to affect this red light layer here. And I'm going to use a hue here to change it to more of a magenta type color. So as I go to the left here, you'll see it start turning to a more magenta type color here. Something like that. Looks a bit more in line with the triadic color theory. So again, you can see the power here in terms of, I didn't need to go back into DAZSTUDIO and mess around with the color or anything or try to figure out what the color is at all. I can do it all inside Photoshop. Look at this amazing power you have with doing the renders. Taking that time to do those 3 renders of those 3 light sources that we had. And now we've put it into Photoshop, and now I can really play around with whatever I need to. So I'm more happy with that. I feel that fits better with the triadic color theory that we were going with. So I'm still looking at this here and looking at this render and thinking like that blue light is still a bit too powerful here. If I just reduce it a bit, here we go. It's still a bit too powerful here, like the light here. It's kind of like when I'm looking at this scene, even though I'm looking here, my eye is still drawn to this part here as well. I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is for my blue light here, I'm going to go to my mask here. And I'm going to use my gradient tool here for my mask that's selected here. And I'm going to fade it out here. So let's see if this works here. So I'm going to fade it out a bit. Can you see how the mask is fading out here on the right here? I'm darkening this part here. So something like that here looks pretty good. Now, if it's too harsh, that's not a problem. What we can do is with the mask selected, we can change the density and feather it as well. So we've got complete control over how the mask works. So I can remove the density. You'll see that it starts to get a little bit brighter here. And you'll notice that it's getting a bit grayer here as well. Can you see that it's getting a bit gray here? The gray tone here. So if it's too harsh, you think, you still got 100% complete control over that as well. And we can feather it a bit as well. If you feel like it's still not enough, you can feather it a bit. So as I go through, something like that looks okay. So I basically made that darker now there. So that was too bright. I didn't like that. I want my viewer's attention to go there. So that looks pretty good as it does right now. Even with this red light here, I'm going to click on the red light layer. I think I might just reduce that even a bit more because I've got full control over it. Remember, something like that is fine as well. Maybe something like 40. So we get enough, but not too much. 45, 46, that is absolutely fine. So you can see the amount of control we have with this here. What we've done looks really, really good. Right, I'm very happy with that at the moment. That's great. However, I want to share with you how to stack layers properly when you are when you are doing your Postwork. This is one of the things that I didn't fully comprehend when I was doing the Postwork for Tiger Dragon the Rebirth. I was doing it in a long-winded way. However, this layer stacking I think is much more intuitive, much more better in terms of controlling everything and making sure you are getting the best effects with your layers. So what I'm going to do, because I'm happy with everything the way it is, I'm just going to merge all these layers together. So I'm going to just click on the first one here, blue light. I'm going to go to the bottom layer one, shift click. So all of them are highlighted as you can see here, and then right click and do merge these layers. So all these layers are merged together. That's my final result for now. Then what I'm going to do is create a duplicate layer. So right click, duplicate layer here, do OK. Now this layer here is where I'm going to add my effects. So for example, the first effect I'm going to add is, actually before I do that, I need to right click and make it into a smart object. One of the effects I'm going to use right now is go to filter here with my copy selected here, and I'm going to go to stylize. I'm going to go to emboss, and I'm just going to use these settings just to show you how to layer stack properly. So click OK. Now for this one, you can choose whatever blending mode you want to. I'm going to use hard light here, and you can see you get this kind of like really distinct details here with emboss here. That's far too harsh. I want to reduce that, so I'm going to use the opacity to reduce that effect. So it's there, but it's barely like negligible. It's there, something's there, but you don't know what it is, and that's what I want to do. So let me just make this bigger as well so we can see what it looks like. Like it's there, but it's just barely visible, something like that. Because the best effects are the ones that it's there, but you don't know it's not overpowering, but something's there, but you don't know what it is. It kind of blends in. So maybe that needs to reduce a bit more because I think that's too powerful. Something like that is okay. So if I turn off that effect, you can see what it looks like before. When I turn the effect on now, you can see the difference. It's very subtle. That's what you want. Any effect you use should be subtle. It should not overpower your scene whatsoever. So let's say I'm happy with the emboss there. I'm going to go to my original one here at the bottom. I'm going to right click and create a duplicate layer of that as well. Click OK. Again, I'm going to just make that into a smart object so I have more, so it's non-destructive. And what I'm going to do now is go to filter. I'm going to go to Knit Collection Tools. I'm going to go to Color Effects Pro 4. And I'm going to use my comic book preset. So I'm going to use my comic book preset that I have, which is going to be number 2 here. See how that is, and then click OK. Now again, that's very bright, not what I want. So like I said, we've got the opacity here, and we can reduce that because it's too much there. But I'm still going to get my effect here, so that's what I want to do. So maybe something like 20% there. So not only have I got my comic book preset here, I've also got my emboss still. So they're both working in tandem in order for me to make this scene look amazing. So I'm going to do one more. I'm going to right click here and do another duplicate layer. Last one we're going to do here, and I'm going to make it a smart object here. And this time I'm going to go to filter, and I'm going to go Knit Collection Tools. I'm going to go to Analog FX Pro, which I really do like. There's a lot of great presets in here that you can use. And the one I'm going to use is, could go with that one, that's very harsh there. One I'm going to use is this one here. Looks fine. Click OK. And again, I can adjust that using the opacity and say, hey, that's too much. So that's absolutely fine here. We've got the 3 layers here. They're all working in tandem. And this is where I'm going to stop with this. So I'm happy with this the way it is. That's one of the things I'm working on personally, is knowing when to stop. Because when it comes to Postwork, you can go into a number of different software packages and use their filters, their effects, and you're going to keep going and going and going, and you don't know when to stop. And adding more filters, adding like 20 filters to your Postwork routine is not going to make that render better. You're just going to start to, it's just going to start to get ridiculous. I've known this from experience where I've just gone crazy. I'll actually share one with you now on this here where I've gone and my settings are far too high on this, and I realize I need to dial it back and be more subtle in my approach when I'm doing this Postwork. So definitely recommend you experiment with your Postwork process, but also don't go crazy with the filters, right? Keep it as minimal as possible. A, it's going to save you time, and B, it's definitely going to make your render look better, because the more you add filters, they don't necessarily make it better, the more you're losing the details that you've added before. So definitely something that I highly recommend with the Postwork process. So let's do the before and after here. So let's remove the after here. Let's put the before on. So that is the before here. This is the straight up render that would come out of DAZSTUDIO if we never had those 3 layers of renders that we had. So we didn't have the separate layer for the green light, the red light, and the blue light. This is what it looks like. Looks pretty good. I mean, it looks okay. Still too overpowering, this blue light here, taking my attention away. That red is horrible, by the way. I do not like that red, the way that came out. Let's see the after here. Look at the after. So before, after, before, after. That's the power of doing this process, this Postwork process inside Photoshop. Not once did I have to go into DAZSTUDIO and change the colors. I can do all inside my favorite photo editing software. So this concludes the PLP framework. I highly recommend you use this framework to guide you, to help you, to create some sort of foundation for you to work from. And then from there, you're going to use what works for you and take that to the next level. So in part 1, what we did is we looked at posing, the 5 categories of posing. And then in part 2, I applied it to my very old render. And then in part 3, we talked about lighting, which is the second part of the PLP framework. And in part 4, I applied those lighting principles to my render that I created in part 2. And then in part 5, we did Postwork, which is the third principle of the PLP framework, which is Postwork. And I did that here inside Photoshop. So that is your PLP framework. Use it as a guide, use it as a reference to help you to create the best renders you can. If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss out any more great videos going to help you to create the best renders you can. Also, don't forget to leave a comment down below as well. If you want to know anything more about Postwork, if you want any more videos like this, leave a comment down below as well. And until the next video, always be learning.